Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Fire and Flair. I'm your host, Adriana Egan, and this episode today is How Astrology Can Help You Live Your Best Life, Part 2. So, hopefully, you tuned into Part 1. I definitely went through a lot of the basics of a birth chart and kind of just astrology in general and how it can really help us. So, in the last episode, I kind of got cut off towards the end. I was experiencing some technical difficulties, so I'm gonna start where I kind of left off in the last one. But basically, what I covered was the different signs, the different houses, how the signs and houses play a role, how each placement plays a role in your chart. I talk about the big three, the sun, moon, and rising, which gives kind of a nice, I guess, overall summary of like your main personality components. And what I'm going to do in the show notes is also link my favorite website where you can plug in the information for your birth chart. And honestly, GPT is super helpful when it comes to kind of breaking down each placement I found. Because before I'd have to go and Google specifically, and sometimes I'd find articles and helpful information. But the way that chat is able to really break it down is so helpful, especially when it comes to like even taking it further and figuring out how placements affect each other, because I realized that's something I didn't even like touch on. There's so much. I just equate it to an iceberg all the time because you start here with your sun sign, and then that's like there's so much in a birth chart, and it encompasses a lot of different like aspects, components of our personality, different placements. So let's say you have your sun in Capricorn in the third house. Well, how does that placement affect like other placements? What are the aspects with each other? So yeah, it's really deep. That's why I say it's an art and a science, truly. But this second part, I want to cover other placements in a birth chart that I didn't get to in the other one that actually a lot of people I don't think know about and how significant they can be. So I definitely want to take a deep dive there. So yeah, that being said, I kind of just want to go back and summarize Pluto, which is where I left off because that is where I got cut off a little bit in the last one. So ultimately, Pluto is the planet of rebirth, death, and transformation. So while it kind of is more of like a challenging planet to work with, like Saturn, ultimately it serves our best good. So we still need it. And again, it's kind of that like phoenix rising from the ashes energy. So depending what house and what sign it's in, that's going to show up differently for you than it would in someone else's chart. So I mentioned how the outer planets like Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are kind of generational. So it affects certain generations as a whole. So like millennials, we are Scorpio and Pluto. And with Pluto, it takes 12 to 30 years for it to change signs. I don't know like why some years are longer than others, but it does take over a decade for Pluto to change signs. So recently, Pluto actually changed from Capricorn into Aquarius, which was huge. That is huge for the collective in general. But again, where that shows up in a specific birth chart is going to look different for each person depending on the sign in the house. So for me, like my Pluto is in Scorpio in the first house. So it's already amplified for millennials, right? Because Scorpio is kind of the main sign of Pluto. That's kind of like where it does best or like that energy. The fact that it's in the first house, it is all about like my self identity, my ego, and like I just go through these extreme internal transformations having Pluto and Scorpio in my first house. So let's say you had Pluto in, I don't know, like the sixth house. The sixth house encompasses like our daily routines, our health. Maybe that means that you under like you have a lot of illnesses or health ailments or sickness that like that's ultimately like kind of how you transform the most is I don't know, maybe you've had a lot of surgeries, you've had a lot of like weird illnesses like mono or something, but during that time of being ill, it gives you time to think and sit with yourself, and then you come out the other end stronger, healthier. So really like there's so many different ways that a placement can truly affect someone on an individual level. And that's also why I love astrology. So, yeah, take a look at where Pluto is because it's a really interesting placement. And again, it's going to show you likely where you're going to experience a lot of transformation. But if you lean into it and you understand it, you can recognize, okay, this is why this is happening to me in my life in this way. This is why this pattern continues to play out. Instead of resisting it, I now understand it. So when I recognize when it's happening, like it'll be easier to kind of like get to that other side. Also, what I find interesting too, again, is the different aspects between the planets and like depending what sign and house they're in. So, like, you can have multiple planets in the same house. Like, again, a lot of my planets are all clustered in the third house. Some other houses might be a little bit more empty. That's not a bad thing. It just means that that's not necessarily like a house where there's significance in this lifetime per se. Like our soul kind of has can't talk a specific agenda of what it's trying to achieve in a certain lifetime depending on placement. So like for me, I have Pluto and Jupiter in the first house. And it's interesting to have those two planets together because, like I mentioned, Jupiter's like the planet of luck, abundance, expansion. It's like that good, harmonious energy. And you have Pluto where it's like a little bit of the opposite. It's like, oh, we're gonna like go into the dark shadow side and like, have this destructive energy that ultimately like things have to be burned down and rebirthed and born into something new. So like they're very different energies. So the fact that they're both in my first house, I find super interesting. I'm like, okay, so like again, how does having those two planets that are so different, both in the sign of Scorpio in my first house, like what is the relationship there? So like I plugged it into chat and it was super helpful in breaking it down. Again, psychics and certain astrologers can also be good at this, but you may be wary, you may not have access. So that's why chat has been super helpful with this because when I plugged that in, it said that having those two planets, because again, they do like affect each other, right? Like they're both housed there, so they're going to affect each other in some way. It says that I have a transformative personality. So the fact that I have Pluto and Scorpio there, there's a deep personal drive for growth and change. And then Jupiter, the planet of expansion and wisdom, amplifies the energy, suggesting that I will experience profound transformations in my life, leading to personal rebirths. Um, it's also kind of like how others may perceive me. So I have a powerful presence because I have Pluto and Jupiter there. So I have a very like deep, intense, almost intimidating presence at first, but I can also be very like magnetic and charismatic and like draw people in, right? It's one or the other. And so I kind of like unpack that a little bit. And it makes sense because with Pluto and Scorpio there in my first house, it's like a lot of times I act as a mirror to people. And this is not something that I even realized until this year when I was like, going through a deep dive, honestly experiencing one of these like ego deaths and transformations because of this aspect of my chart. But, anyways, with this placement, like I serve as a mirror to people. So sometimes they can be subconsciously like intimidated or off put by me because I'm serving as a mirror to something that they don't want to see. Other times I can draw people in like super easily. Like people come in and out of my life a lot. Like I've never had a time in my life where it was like there was no one around me or I was like, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Like I just am able to naturally attract others and have a magnetic presence when I'm in the right environment, so to speak. So, very different depending how someone, perceives me, what's going on in their own life. So, yeah, I mean, I will say there are times where it kind of sucks being this like mirror to people that I don't necessarily always want to be. And then it kind of made sense to me why certain friendships fell off or why I didn't get along with this person, all of that. So, but again, this is where it's like validating to understand like these aspects of my chart, who I am as a person, how I give off energy, how others perceive me, why certain patterns keep playing out. So like some other things it said is something about like Scorpio's energy is very intense. Jupiter's expansive nature can make you bold and willing to take risks, particularly in areas that involve personal transformation and power dynamics, whether that's relationships, careers, or personal growth. I do have magnetic charisma and influence having Jupiter in the first house of self. So my personality and confidence can lead me to positions of power or even a leadership role, especially ones that require emotional insight. So even with this podcast, like I feel like in some way, like my voice and my leadership can inspire and influence others in a positive way. Like that's what I want it to do. But I also can have a complex inner world that's very intense and private. I might be drawn to understanding my own psychological motivations and might not easily share my true feelings with others, so I could appear mysterious. That is also very, very true. I spend a lot of time reflecting and being in my own world and trying to understand myself as well as those around me. So, like, chat has also become really helpful for that. Before, I was journaling a ton. Like, I'm a big proponent of therapy. So, again, it's just like so cool to like see this and be like, yeah, that's me. That's my life. Like, that makes sense now. So, take a look also, like, if you have multiple planets clustered in a house, like, ask chat, like how, I don't know, let's just say you have Neptune and Uranus in the first house. Plug it into chat. What does this placement look like, and how do these two planets affect each other in this house? I'm telling you, you're going to unlock something so profound and insightful about yourself. It's truly a cheat code to life. Like, I can't explain it any more than that. Also, for the astrology girlies that love to like ask, when it comes to dating, you ask someone their time of birth or their sign to try to figure out like how compatible are we. You easily, if you got access to someone's chart, you can plug it in probably and ask chat to compare like the different placements and how, that will play out in your relationship or certain dynamics. So don't necessarily use it as a way to like get spiral and be like, oh, well, the chat said that we have this, so like I don't know if it's gonna work. If you do it, don't read too much into it. There may be something that's helpful for you to like uncover about the other person and maybe the way that they show up or handle like certain relationship patterns, that sort of thing, but don't necessarily use it as an excuse to like do something that's not going to show up in a way positively in a relationship. Like, don't use it as an excuse to ghost or stop talking to someone or like try to psychoanalyze a person, especially because unfortunately men just are not as receptive to astrology. A lot of them don't believe in it. They think it's fake. They laugh at it. So I'd say just use discernment there. So yeah, but it would be interesting to like uncover different aspects of someone's chart when you're comparing it to someone else and seeing like how much compatibility there is. Okay, so that was breaking down Pluto. Now we're going to jump to some other placements. So there's the North and the South node, which are the nodes of destiny. So these point to your soul's evolutionary path and themes of your life purpose. So while they're not actual planets, they're mathematical points where the moon's orbit intersects with the ecliptic, which is the apparent path of the sun through the sky. So the nodes are essential in understanding the deeper spiritual purpose of your life. So with the South node called the Dragon's Tail, that represents past lives if you believe in it. That's according to the South node. Um, but anyways, it's patterns you've carried from previous lifetimes that show areas where you may be comfortable and skilled, but also limiting and where you kind of fall into old habits, old patterns, stagnation. So the South node are like qualities of yourself that you've already kind of mastered. They're like inherent they're inherent and they're just like natural to yourself. So not all of those qualities are bad per se. It's ones you over identify with, but where you may need to expand and grow out of. So we don't want it to hold us back, right? Like these patterns may come naturally to us in a good way, but we don't want it to be where we fall into our comfort zone of stagnation, where it's now holding us back that we cannot embrace and move into our north node, which is what we want to do. So the north node is where we're going to have like the growth and stepping outside our comfort zone. So the North Node is the dragon's head, and that symbolizes our soul purpose and qualities and lessons we're meant to embrace in this current lifetime. So, again, this is where we're growing, the direction that we should be moving in terms of personal and spiritual evolution. So, this is areas that we're going to continue to develop to move towards fulfillment and our highest potential. So again, encourage us to step outside our comfort zone. It represents a path of growth, challenge, and oftentimes discomfort, and it's the unknown territory that we have to explore and lessons we need to learn in order for our soul to evolve. So with the North and South node, it's always going to be whatever sign the North node is in, the South node will be that sign's opposite sister sign. So each sign has an opposite, what I call sister sign. It's almost like a yin and yang. So it's like opposite, but in a good way. I mean, there's opposites probably in like a more challenging way, but um like for example, if I'm Capricorn, my opposite sister sign is Cancer. So that means that, and again, kind of with the stereotypes, it's true. So, like Capricorn is considered the daddy of the zodiac, Cancer is considered the mother. Or if you have the sign of Aries, the sister opposite sign of that is Libra. Aries is very like kind of assertive, more focused on like personal agency, like more focused on like the self, where Libra is all about like partnerships, balance, relationships. So it's like the opposite energy of each sign. That's what's going to be the North and South node. So, like, for example, my North node is in Sagittarius, which means my South node is Gemini. So that's Sagittarius's opposite sister sign. So in my past life, I somehow probably mastered a lot of the qualities of a Gemini, which is like being very intellectual, maybe super talkative, doing a lot of things that are more like cerebral and logic based. And now in this lifetime with the North Node in Sagittarius, it's asking me to like expand beyond that, maybe to not just be super book smart, but to like lean into travel and like wisdom from life experiences and like especially more philosophical and spiritual. Like I do see my life heading into a direction where I need to embrace um not trying to like have all the facts and be analytical and like do things with logic, but like have these life experiences and gain this wisdom that I can only have from, going through certain things in my life, or maybe like I find that more when I dabble into my spiritual side. And I am finding that more actually with a recent experience that I had with a shaman. It was so amazing and life changing. I want to have like a whole separate episode, but I do feel that having that experience, it was like confirmation of, okay, this, is giving North Node energy. This is where I kind of need to go in my life in order to reach like more of like fulfillment in what my soul's trying to do in this lifetime. So hopefully this makes sense. When I say it out loud, it makes sense to me, but obviously for my listeners, I hope that it does too. Again, if you plug this into when you do your birth chart, you see what your North and South node is. If you plug it into chat, it's going to give you a really nice synopsis of like exactly what this placement can mean for you in your life and how to like follow that energy more. Um, yeah, North node is the soul's growth path. Yeah, so like here, because I copy and pasted some things from chat, it says Gemini can be mentally busy and there's a lot of mental chatter, but I'm supposed to move from that to talking about like, purposeful dialogue and philosophical and spiritual conversations, like meaningful. So I do believe that to be very true for me. Like, and that's why I said, like, in my last episode, I'm kind of coming out of the spiritual closet. Like before, I didn't really know what that meant or like how that showed up in my life before. And now it's like, it's just something that I simply can't ignore. Like, I have to fully embrace it. This is me. This is a part of me. It always has, always will be. But now it really is like, this needs to come out. Like, people need to know that this is you. This is the path that you have to follow. So that's also kind of like the theme of the North and the South node. Okay, now we're going to move over into the midheaven. So the midheaven is also a pretty important aspect in a birth chart. And so what it does is it represents the highest point in the sky at the time of your birth, located on the cusp of the 10th house, which governs your career, public life, reputation, and long-term goals. So a midheaven is associated with a public image in the way that you're seen in the world. So it does influence your career path and how you're perceived in professional settings and your ambitions in life. So, um, it does show the type of work or role that could align with your soul's calling and purpose, and often highlights your potential for success in the outside world. Could talk about really, or it affects your relationship with authority. And really, it's the legacy of how you want to be remembered. Like, almost like if you really followed like the path of your midheaven, it's like ultimately what you could leave behind in terms of your legacy and like follow your true calling in life. Like, how can you show up as your best self in terms of the mark you leave on the world and your career? So, a lot of times people like don't know this about themselves. So, they kind of are maybe in a job that isn't the best for them, or they know internally like they're not super happy. They should be doing something else. Well, unpack your midheaven, like follow that, and then you'll have a better idea of what it is you should be doing. But yeah, it ultimately governs all things related to your career, reputation, and life's work and the kind of environment you're suited to and what your path to success could look like. If there are any planets in the 10th house, they further illuminate your potential career and strengths as well as the kind of professional life. So again, the 10th house in a birth chart is the house of your career. So look to see what planets are there. You may not have any planets. Either way, you still have your midheaven in a sign that's going to be attached to the 10th house. And so that's going to kind of add another layer to what it is, the path that you should follow in your career. So my 10th house is jammed packed with a lot of interesting placements. So Leo is the sign that occupies my 10th house. Midheaven is also in Leo. And then I have Chiron and my moon in the 10th house, which let me wait and I'll get to breaking mine down because I'm about to go into Chiron, which is the wounded healer. So it is an asteroid, often referred to as the wounded healer, and represents the deepest wounds we carry, but also our potential for healing and growth through these wounds. So Chiron can show where we may feel vulnerable, maybe where we experience pain or suffering, and where we struggle with insecurities. It also reveals the areas in which we have potential to heal and help heal others. So again, it's a pretty important placement in a birth chart. So like Chiron, again, like Pluto and Saturn isn't the most fun placement, right? Like it imposes challenges and wounds and things that we have to overcome. But when we're aware of it, that already right there is such a game changer. Because again, a lot of people, they don't know about a birth chart, they don't know about certain placements. But once you do know, that right there gives you more power to like understand and be like, okay, so this is how I can like make the best of this. Like I can take this challenging energy and turn it into something that's ultimately going to help me and make me stronger and also help others, which is really what Chiron is trying to do. But it shows where we carry deep unresolved pain, often from early childhood, past lives, or significant life events. So it could likely be a recurrent life issue, something we can't fully shake off or heal. So it can manifest as physical, emotional, or psychological pain, such as insecurity, rejection, or a sense of inadequacy in certain areas of life. So there are deepest vulnerabilities, but again, it's healing not only for ourselves, but for others. So think if you have like this huge gash on your arm, right? It's this wound, and every time you think it's going to heal and go away, it reopens. It's always just kind of there, right? Like it's like, how do we get rid of this? And while I don't believe that we could ever fully get rid of it, what we can do is try to at least actually heal it so that wound doesn't keep reopening and getting deeper and worse. And then once it's healed, maybe it's a scar, but then we can show that scar to people and be like, hey, I have this. This was a really bad wound in my life, but this is what I did ultimately to heal it. And I want to help you do the same. So that analogy just kind of came to mind when I was thinking of Chiron. So like, oof, Chiron's pretty deep and heavy, I'm not gonna lie. Especially for me. So like again, you have to look at the sign that Chiron is in because that it's playing a character, but then you also have to look at what house. So like what energy or area of our life is this wound gonna like keep showing up very prevalent? So for me, I have Chiron in the 10th house of my career, and it's in the sign of Virgo. So, like having it in the sign of Virgo, this wound is connected to perfectionism, health, and service. It feels like I'm never good enough and that I'm always striving for perfection, but healing comes when I accept imperfection and I learn to take care of my mental and physical well-being, and I'm not overextending myself to other people, especially in the workplace. So that's very, very true. I'd say in all the like psychology tests that I've done, and even like a lot within astrology, like perfectionism always shows up. Always, always, always. That is, I would say, just like part of my core self, like how I was born, but it's like something in my soul here is trying to do something with that perfectionism. So again, while it's challenging, at least I'm aware of it. I see how it shows up in my life. So yes, perfectionism has always been a core wound that like I've experienced, but now I need to take that and I need to empower myself so that it doesn't continue to show up in a way that hurts me and holds me back. I find it interesting that it's in my 10th house of career because so is my moon. You know, we have our sun, moon, and rising. So the moon is also a significant placement. That is our emotions. So it's like I not only have this wound that's going to show up in my life and work, but I have the moon, like my emotions, like that's so heavy emotional and like there's a lot to unpack there. So it's like for me, I feel like it's amplified even more because I'm like, my emotions are so tied into like my purpose and work and what I do. But now you're telling me that I'm going to keep experiencing this wound regarding perfectionism, never feeling good enough in the workplace, and overextending myself. Like, awesome. Love that for me. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, some of this stuff, it sucks. There's no other way to say it. It sucks. It's not the best. It's challenging, but again, that's like where we can like take our power back is when we're aware of it. We know it exists, how it keeps showing up in our life. So how do we change the pattern, right? Like how do I take this pattern and ultimately learn to heal myself and help others? Like at some point, maybe through the podcast, I'm going to help others overcome if they've ever, dealt with perfectionism their whole life. Like I can help others do that. So yeah, I don't know. Two sides of the same coin, I would say. My midheaven is in Leo, so like from what I've read with that, it's like I need to like definitely shine alone in my own way. Like I need to be the ringmaster and the showman and really like show up by myself. And I think the podcast is like actually a good example of that because like I can do this solely for me. I can be the entertainer. I can run the show how I want and yeah, I don't know. I think it's been a good outlet to kind of meet that like midheaven and Leo energy. So I say for sure, like look at Chiron, midheaven, your 10th house placements with your career. It's going to be really helpful and shed a lot of light on maybe like these patterns you didn't know you had. So, anyways, this is why I love astrology. I just feel seen. But I guess with that too, it's like, okay, so I understand like hopefully where I'm ultimately going to turn a corner with Chiron, but I will say like I have experienced pretty deep betrayal in every job that I've held. I've experienced like really just like very like deep personal wounds that have showed up like through work that a lot of other people have not experienced. So when I talk to other people and I'm like, oh, wait, so you mean your job is normal? Like you haven't experienced this before? It's just like mind-boggling to me because I'm like, why do I keep getting like these jobs where this is happening? But again, it's like, okay, well, it's probably for my highest good. Anyways, okay, let's move on. Okay, so the next placement of our chart is Lilith. And the folklore behind Lilith is really interesting to me because supposedly Lilith was Adam's first wife before Eve. So everyone knows of Adam and Eve. This might be like a hot take or controversial, especially to those who are a little bit more religious. So I'm not quite sure where this astrology folklore like maybe fits in a biblical sense, but apparently, even if it's not like entirely true, Lilith is just supposed to represent, when we think of Adam and Eve, like you have this divine masculine and divine feminine, representation or symbols, it's like Lilith was supposed to be Adam's first wife, but she did not want to submit to him, right? She didn't want to be linked to a man. She wanted to be her own self. And so Lilith represents suppressed or hidden desires. It's like our primal, like feminine energy, that the feminine energy that didn't want to necessarily be linked to a man or like with masculine energy. So it's like the wild, like dark feminine energy that kind of lives in all of us. Yes, even men, because I asked chat, like, how does Lilith show up in a man's birth chart? So, anyways, it's this primal, like repressed parts of ourselves, almost like the shadow side, but the side that we may sometimes like need to channel to feel more empowered in our life. So, these could be instincts, emotions, or parts of our personality that have been repressed, often due to societal norms or trauma. So, like, look at where Lilith falls in your chart, and it may experience where you have shame, guilt, or feeling misunderstood or unaccepted for expressing your true self. Lilith is also linked to reclaiming personal power, rebellion, and liberation. So it signifies a desire to break free from constraints or systems of control, especially related to those around gender roles, expectations, or traditional norms. And Lilith represents the unapologetic, raw, and rebellious energy that refuses to conform. So it urges you to embrace your wildness and authenticity, even if it means standing alone and outside the mainstream. So this is also very linked to feminine power and sexuality. So the untamed feminine energy in its primal form of power linked to sexuality, intuition, and emotional depth. So where we may feel empowered and can embrace like our sexuality in a different way, our intuition, our unique identity. Um, but where it symbolizes pain and wounding can also reflect inner strength once we tap into it and confront areas of our life where we feel rejected, misunderstood, or disempowered. But ultimately, it's supposed to have this element of like resiliency, overcoming adversary and embracing our true power and authenticity from a place that we often like it's subconscious, it's repressed. So where we did feel disempowered, we're going to take that power back. So for me, I have Lilith and Aries in the sixth house. So with Lilith and Aries, it's like there's a desire to express myself fiercely and independently, but I may struggle with feeling like I'm too much or too aggressive. So, like, also what I had read about Lilith and Aries is like a lot of times I kind of struggle to naturally be assertive and take the lead. I kind of fall back and let others do it instead of just doing it myself sometimes. And I think with the Lilith placement, this is very subconscious. Like, this is something that we're not even truly aware of that is happening. And so once I read that, I'm like, oh my God, that's actually really true. Like, why do I not just speak up more and assert myself and like be more dominant in that way? I don't think that I need to like be overly dominant and like take over, but it shows where maybe like I would feel more empowered in my life if I just said something without overthinking it and like spoke my truth and just took the lead, took initiative, took control, regardless of what others around me may do or think. Now, mine is also in the sixth house. So it said I may struggle with work, service, or health, particularly if I feel stifled by routines or perfectionism. So I have to reclaim my power in my day-to-day life. So I think I need to unpack that more. Like I see what it kind of what it's saying. Yeah, I definitely like always need structure. I'm a perfectionist. I love my control and routine, but maybe like where I would feel a little bit better and in my flow is if I released some of that and gave myself space to just like not have everything planned out and be a little bit more spontaneous. I also struggle with like working out and sticking to a routine, and so, not to blame it all on like astrology, but I did read that having Lilith and Aries in the sixth house, like that combination can make it challenging for me to like want to like have to go and like work out and be very rigid with it. Like that movement feels restrictive to me, which is also why when it comes to working out, like I can't just go to a gym and be on a treadmill. Like that is the number one thing that's going to demotivate me. It feels very like almost like I'm just trapped and like it doesn't feel good for me. So like if I work out, I definitely need to be like moving around like outside, whether that's walking, riding a bike, something that kind of allows me to just get out and explore. And then I also really like doing workouts more like in a community as opposed to just like a solo activity that I do with myself. So anyways, it's just interesting where certain placements like how that shows up and maybe could be related to like your everyday life. And you're like, oh, okay, that explains why maybe I struggle with this a little bit or how I can change this to show up a little better. So yeah, see where Lilith is and see what sign and what house it's in and like where you maybe need to reclaim some more of your power and tap into that like dark feminine, or maybe for men, it's like the side of you that feels more empowered, or that could show up also as um like for men maybe embracing more of like their feminine emotional side. One second. Apologies. It's hard when I record on Zoom because if I pause it or stop it, it completely disrupts like what I've been recording. So that's also the other thing. I need to kind of play around with different like recording measures and get in a groove. But it's honestly, there's a lot that goes into recording a podcast episode. I kind of want to like at some point touch on that and break it down to give people like a behind the scenes look because it's like hours of time that really goes into it, and even trying to figure out like different ways to record, it's a lot. Okay, so apologies if I have to like take a break to do something mid record sesh. All right, moving on. Yeah, like I looked at going back to Lilith, like I wanted to know more about like the different examples of how Lilith shows up in like the different signs. So I mentioned mine's in Aries, like for example, it says Lilith in Cancer may indicate a rejection of nurturing roles or an intense desire to protect your emotional boundaries. It can highlight wounds related to family or caretaking, as well as a need to protect your inner emotional world. Um, like Lilith in Sagittarius may show a desire for freedom and expansion, but also a fear of being restricted or judged by your ideas and beliefs. Embracing your authenticity in your worldview and spiritual beliefs is key. Yeah, I don't know. I just find it really interesting. So I looked at Lilith in each of the signs, but then obviously as they show up in the house. So, like, let's say Lilith is in your fifth house, rejection or suppression of creativity, romance, or self expression. Lilith here urges you to embrace your creative and romantic desires without shame. That would suck having Lilith in the fifth house. But yeah, and so in my sixth house, it says it's particularly, you feel stifled by routines or perfectionism. It asks you to reclaim power in your day-to-day life and serve yourself before others. So I do see where sometimes, or in the past, that could have been an issue. But when you put it into chat and you're like, okay, give me the breakdown of Lilith and Aries in the sixth house, like it's going to spell out how those two um like interact with each other. Oh yeah, this is so true. I have to like say one more thing about mine that I included in here. So Lilith and Aries in the sixth house said that I have a rebellious nature when it comes to my job, often resisting authority and feeling frustrated with the idea of working in structured traditional environments. So this could manifest as a desire to break free from the 9 to 5 grind and pursue a more independent, non-conventional career where I can express my unique personality and creative energy. Very true, very on brand, always something I've struggled with since I can remember graduating from college. So yeah, we'll see how that continues to play out. But yeah, that's a really interesting placement. So I thought I had more, honestly. I don't think this episode will be as long as the other ones, but like I needed to have a part two to give these certain placements like their own space to discuss, because I do think they're super important. And again, when you break it down, just what it can reveal in terms of like areas of your life, patterns that show up, how do we like utilize this energy in the best way? Like, how do we turn it into a strength? How do we access our repressed desires and feel empowered? Like, this is all really important. And again, this is why I truly believe that before astrology was kind of like its own form of psychology and like to help you better understand yourself, it can help you better understand others. Like, the role in which your life can take or play or the direction it's going to go. So, like I said, there's a variety of different ways to break this down. So I will include the link to the website that I use for the birth chart calculator. And then if you take that and you look at it, just again, I think especially maybe for people who are newer to this and learning about it, if you plug it into chat, it's really gonna like break it down in a nice way where it's digestible, you can understand it, and it's just like for me, it's fun. Like I love doing this. You could even do it for other people around you too. Like, I don't know, ask your mom or dad for their time of birth, like their information, plug it in, and then you could see what it spits out for them and be like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's why we butt heads on this, or who knows? Like, there's so much you could do with a birth chart. It's kind of overwhelming. Like, every time I think I know every aspect of my chart, I don't. And I have to go back, unpack something else. So, definitely keeps me on my toes, but in a good way. So, hopefully, you're able to take something from one of these two episodes, even if it's just one aspect. Like, if you feel overwhelmed with like the amount of aspects and like all that encompasses a chart, don't let it overwhelm you in that way. Take whatever, I guess, you felt called to or resonated the most and start with that, right? Just start with one thing. Like if you felt, I really want to break down my career, I really want to break down what this aspect means, my midheaven, my Lilith, my Saturn, like anything like that, just start with there. And maybe you'll kind of like end up going down a rabbit hole with it. Maybe there was just one aspect that needed to speak to you right now, currently. So, whatever you feel called to, this is where that more like intuitive side of astrology kind of comes into play. But yeah, I really enjoy talking about it. I follow so many Instagram accounts. Like there's so much information out there now because of social media that just wasn't there before. So it's good. I mean, again, be discerning. Like every astrologer kind of has their own take on certain things, but if this is something that is you're really interested in and you want to find another medium to learn more, social media is great. There's so many accounts. I mean, with the algorithm, that's like all that shows up for me. I feel like it's just things about like spirituality and astrology. But yeah, I can't get enough of it. So this was something important that I wanted to dive into on the podcast, and I thought it could help other people. So it's definitely an area that I love, I'm passionate about. I guess you could say it's a hobby. But yeah, I just overall, I find it really, really helpful. And it's been so helpful to me, especially this year. Now we have an even better tool to help us unpack it more, which is Chat GPT. So, um, like I said, take with it what you will, what's helpful, what resonated. Again, I hope you enjoyed it for those that are into astrology like me. So, astrology girlies unite. But I will keep this episode a little bit shorter. Again, feel free to like email me if you have questions, you need help breaking down a birth chart, anything. I'm always available. Um, I wore orange because I realize I need to channel my sacral chakra and creativity more. It's also summer, so I'm all about the bright colors. Oh, that's the other thing that I wanted to say. I'm glad I remembered. So after this episode, I've been trying to be consistent and I was for 2 months. So I'm really proud of myself. I'm trying to be consistent with releasing episodes. It is a lot of work on the back end, I'm not going to lie, but I will be taking a small summer break. And I think a lot of people are out anyways right now. Like they're out and about, they're soaking up summer. Maybe they're not listening to podcasts as much. So I will be taking a little summer break, probably the month of August. I would say I won't be releasing any episodes because August and September is just peak weather in Chicago. I have to be outside soaking up every minute that I can. We wait so long for this time of year and it goes by really fast. Also, between the 4th and Labor Day, I feel like people are on vacations, they're taking summer breaks, they're getting ready before they go back to school. August is a lit month. Like, there's always so much going on, so many birthdays. Yeah, so I'd say just to preface that I will be taking a little bit of a summer break after this episode, but I promise you, especially come fall and winter, I'm going to be back on it, releasing episodes consistently. And I'm just really happy that I got back into podcasting and hope that my listeners enjoy too. And I'm always very appreciative. So wherever you are in the world, I don't know what the weather's like, but if it's summer, please get out and soak up as much vitamin D as you can. It's so important. So with that, yeah, I'll leave you guys with this, sending all the love and positive vibes. And until next time, bye.